Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? Matt Jarbo here with $3 Theater. I know this isn't necessarily like movie or TV or entertainment related, but I do feel that the headline of this article here, John Cleese calls out dreadful critics who can't act or direct themselves, is something that does apply when talking about this industry. And oftentimes when you look at movie reviews or television reviews or things like that, or even reviews from people here on YouTube who've got absolutely zero filmmaking experience or entertainment industry experience outside of, if they're professionals, they get invited to junkets, they get invited to all these events, and they kind of get high on the smell of their own farts. It is nice to see an actual actor who has done a lot over the span of his entire very long career come out and, eviscerate some people because, well, let's face it, most critics suck. And I put myself in that category as well when I do critique things. So this is what's going on here. Comedy legend John Cleese believes critics who cannot write, direct, or act should not be reviewing movies. And that is that's a weird hill to die on, and not everyone is going to like it. But I do think there is some weight to it. And allow me to explain. In like my whole life, I grew up watching movies, right? My whole life, I grew up watching movies, TV, all that stuff. I've read screenplays. I've written screenplays. I went to film school. I've directed films. I've produced films. I've done a lot. So when it comes to the making of a movie, I have a better understanding of it than people out there who are just like armchair critics who have never spent any actual time behind a camera or making anything. And there are those out there that become so bitter, jaded, and cynical over not being able to succeed in the marketplace or in the industry, that they become critics and then that they themselves transfer that cynicism over to their reviews where they just hate everything because there's that jilted X perspective. And this, of course, brings us back to the article here with John Cleese. So let's take a look here. So this is what's going on. John Cleese may be less well known of the US than his native UK. Who wrote this? Hold on. Niraj. No, John Cleese is very well known in the United States. I just think that's a weird title to open, a weird line to open it on. But the actor's contributions to the world of comedy are acknowledged the world over. Unfortunately, not everything the Monty Python and Fawlty Tower star does is loved by critics. A recent show performed as a pay-per-view live stream from Cadogan Hall, titled "Why There Is No Hope" by the actor and comedian, resulted in a 1-star review by a particular critic. In response, Cleese had some scathing words to impart on Twitter to the entire profession of film and TV criticism. Now, it is a bit apropos. It is a little bit, something you shouldn't do when you call out someone who negatively received your work. That is something that obviously shouldn't be done. But something this guy said really triggered John Cleese. It really did. So let's see what he says here. He says, "There's a hilariously vile review of my little streamed talk last night in the Telegraph. Its critic really hated it. I wonder if he was influenced in any way by my quoting Oscar Wilde. Critics are like eunuchs. They watch it every night, but they can't do it themselves. I agree with Oscar. If critics could write or direct or act, presumably they would be doing that and earning more than the pittance that the critics are paid. So it's odd that given their inabilities, they are then put in judgment over people who can write, direct, and act." And you know what? Look, the thing with that is that's actually a pretty fair statement to make. It really is. So the reason why it's a fair statement in some aspects is, would you go to a mechanic and would you go to a person who's never been a mechanic and ask them to fix your car? Would you go to a person who has never once cooked food and ask them to prepare you sushi or to prepare you a dish? You wouldn't do those things. I mean, we go to these people who are professionals in their field because they have experience working in that field. Critical analysis of something feels, in many cases, especially here on the internet, that it's kind of like any Tom, Dick, and nut job can do it. And I'm trust me, I'm any Tom, Dick, and nut job. And I feel like, I just kind of put my thoughts and my feelings out there. And I don't necessarily give the most critical takes on things, but it's like I give my thoughts and my opinions. I always do try to look at things from the best possible perspective, but there are people out there that don't. In fact, I think in this particular case, it'd be best to look to see what exactly this critic said about John Cleese that got him so worked up. So, this is what Dominic Cavendish for the Telegraph had said here. His performance seemed calculated to demonstrate over a tedious hour that Cleese has become the very thing, humorous and humorless and earnest that he once made a universal laughingstock. Aside from a few welcome quips at his own expense, he likened Cadogan Hall's surreally vacant auditorium to the annual general meeting of the Apathy Society. The National Treasure decided to bore for Britain. Cleese's comedy legacy is assured, but I'd rather submit to the Spanish Inquisition than watch this wretched disposition again. And that's harsh, man. That's pretty harsh. I mean, come on. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. That's a great classic line. He might as well have also added in there, the blooming parrot is dead. Like, he could have said anything he wanted to go back and quote Monty Python. But the fact of the matter is, Cleese has lived a life. And where he's at now is a person who critiques society through comedic lens back in the day. And very, very aptly so. I mean, the entire Monty Python troupe did this amazingly through their show. They did this through their movies. I mean, he is a comedy legend, an absolute comedy legend. But I do think that comedy, which oftentimes is born from tragedy, does sometimes make a cynic out of the comedian. And I say that because you look at someone like, let's say, George Carlin. Towards the end of Carlin's career, he came across as being very, very bitter and very cynical. My stepdad grew up listening to Carlin, was a big Carlin fan. So one year for his birthday, I bought him and my mom tickets to go and see Carlin perform. They came back unimpressed. They weren't happy with it because of the way that Carlin came across. Sadly, he died not long afterwards, so I myself wasn't able to attend one of his shows. But still, it's like you can understand that when a person views society through the lens of satire and through the lens of comedic response, and they see society going a certain way all these years later, they can become perhaps bitter and cynical. Most comedians themselves, I believe, are very nihilistic, narcissistic, sociopathic cynics, because that's how they find the comedy in life. They find the comedy in life for you to laugh at, not for them to laugh at, but for you to laugh at. And that's kind of what Cleese is doing. But we live in an age now where Cleese is kind of right. You can't really laugh at things. You can't really laugh at much of things. Story broke yesterday about how in the Pacific Northwest, at the Northwest Center for Film, I believe, there was going to be a screening of Kindergarten Cop. And that screening of Kindergarten Cop was actually pulled because of the fact that Schwarzenegger played a cop in the movie, and it was perceived as a good thing. This is happening during like almost the 70th straight night of protests in Portland over the George Floyd killing, as well as other aspects as well. And the Northwest Center for Film pulled it, and they likened Kindergarten Cop to that of the antebellum South portrayal in Gone with the Wind. That is how insane, and the word I used on Twitter very carefully to denote foolish and ignorant, of course, is the word retarded. It's very retarded. And I was called out by leftists today that were trying to go after me for my choice of ableist language. Never mind the fact I chose that word specifically to garner that kind of response, to show how absolutely ignorant and foolish that decision was. And this is kind of the thing that Cleese is talking about. Cleese brings up these scenarios and he talks about these things because they matter to him. When a person who looks through the lens of satire at society gets judged by those who have never once done the same, or even maybe attempted to do the same, but yet are somehow perceived to be the judge, jury, and executioner of these entertainers or these actors or these creators, I do think that it's fair every once in a while for the artist to come back and snipe at the critics. It doesn't come across to me as being a sore loser. I think he actually makes a pretty apt point about Oscar Wilde and criticism. These people are, I say this as me, we are like eunuchs who watch it every night and can never engage. And that is one of the problems I have even here on YouTube talking about these things. Do I judge someone too harshly for something that they said? Do I say something that comes across as holier than thou? I mean, when's the last time I even made a project? When is the last time I even made a movie or I made a short film? Truth of the matter is I haven't in quite some time. And that pains me to say, but it's true. I haven't done it in coming up on probably about a decade. I haven't done anything like that. I might have made some informational documentary type videos here on YouTube, but it's not the same thing as going out and shooting a short film with actors and sets and a script that I wrote. But yet I am here judging other people for their opinion. And you see what I'm talking about? Like, it is okay for them to fire back at me if they disagree. I don't think it's necessarily a sore loser thing to call out critics who, in some cases, and I would argue in many cases, don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to their criticism, but they hide behind the same concept, the same idea that their ability to provide critical thought if they want to call it that, supersedes any criticism levied at them for never once engaging in the act of which they are critiquing. You know, I wouldn't go to, again, a non-mechanic to get my car worked on. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's where Cleese is as well. I just wanted to get this off my chest. I just wanted to talk about this with you guys. And I want to hear, as always, your thoughts and your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. I look forward to hearing them. Have yourself a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that jazz, and peace out.